Oh, let me just go ahead and adjust the volume here. Let me go ahead and change the radio station. Oh, I need to turn off the lane keeping assist. Ooh, it's a little hot in here. I need to roll down the window. How do we turn on the cruise control again? I'm gonna use the lane change assist. Ah, shoot, I need to adjust the heads-up display. I need to turn on my ventilated seat. Oh man, sun's getting bright. Need to put down the visor. How do we change the drive mode in this thing? Hey everyone, welcome back to another road trip review video here on the channel. Today you join me in the 2025 Polestar 3 dual motor performance, and we're heading back to Detroit, Michigan. Now, I was just in Detroit, Michigan just about a month ago for a separate event, so I'm very familiar with this drive, but obviously being in a fully electric vehicle makes the road trip experience and the entire road trip just a little bit more challenging, if you will, because you do have to find a charging location suitable for the state of charge and ultimately trying to make the trip as efficient as possible. Now, luckily, the Polestar 3 here in its least efficient configuration is still fairly efficient and fairly capable. This vehicle is rated at right around 278 miles of EPA estimated range on a full charge. This vehicle has a 111 kilowatt hour battery pack, I believe right around 107, 108 kilowatt hours usable. And we didn't unfortunately leave at 100% because the trickle charger level 1 charging was a little bit inaccurate when I plugged it in, but we did leave at 97% stated charge, saying 270 miles of estimated range. Now we're already down to 93%, 250 miles of estimated range. I've already got the location that I'm going to target charging at plugged into the Google integrated infotainment system. I actually signed into my profile, and makes the user experience just that much better versus the guest Google integration. But you can see down here, it's estimating 226 miles left, 14% state of arrival at 2:04 p.m. Eastern time, because we are changing time zones once we get towards Michigan. So this is going to be an interesting trip. I'm really hoping I can make it here to this location, because the hotel in which I'm staying at said they do have EV charging on site, which means if I stop here, charged roughly 80 to 90%, I should be able to make it to the hotel, trickle charge the vehicle, get it up to 100% before I leave in about 48 hours or so after arriving later tonight. So there's going to be plenty of time to trickle charge the EV to at least get it up to a suitable state of charge. So I'm basically trying to do this in 2 public DC fast charging sessions, once on the way up and once on the way back. If I can do that, I think this experience is going to be very, very good, because there's a lot of positives about the Polestar 3 thus far. It's a quiet, comfortable, fairly luxurious, although minimalistic interior, which makes certain tasks a little bit more difficult than they need to be, quite honestly. But I will learn all the nuances of this vehicle, over the next 6+ hours of driving today, and then of course 6.5, 7 hours on the way back. I'm just excited for this road trip. I'm not sure there's many people out there outside of owners of this vehicle who have done 1,000+ miles behind the wheel, and I should have plenty of driving time this week to do all of that. You can see here on the digital gauge cluster, it's showing all the vehicles and road markings, which is pretty darn cool. You can change this cluster between the kind of normal menu, Google Maps, as well as the driver assist. You can see we're down to 13% state of arrival. I'm doing 75 miles an hour. Ideally, I wouldn't want to drop below that, but I will keep an eye on this and see if it falls below that 10% threshold and see what our efficiency is going to be here on I believe it's about 82 degrees outside now, very humid, so the air is really thick. Doesn't help with efficiency, but there's not a lot of wind. DC fast charging speeds of up to about 250 kilowatts is what I was told from the driver and what I've researched online. Polestar says 10 to 80% in 30 minutes under an ideal session, which really isn't all that bad given the battery pack size of this vehicle. But if you've seen some of the other content I've recently posted here on the channel, then you'll know the Ioniq 9, which has nearly an identical size battery to this one, did it in about 25 minutes in the real world, which is about 5-minute time savings which, you know, when you're stopping on a road trip isn't the end of the world, but 5 minutes is 5 minutes at the end of the day. And the closer we can get that down under 25 or even 20 minutes, I think will be ideal for the average family or road trip experience out there. I've downloaded Tidal on here to get the highest quality streaming audio, just to enjoy the experience just that much further. And again, I'll catch you guys here in maybe another hour, hour and a half, and give you guys an update as to where we're at. So my hand was on the wheel the whole time. Okay, so I'm back with a not so positive update, which is extremely infuriating. I mean, quite honestly, on a drive like this. So I think I caught it with this camera at the very tail end of it, but essentially I'm driving along. I have my hand at roughly what would be the 8 o'clock position on the steering wheel. Now it just says pilot assist deactivated. What does that mean? I'm basically driving along. It starts flashing on the screen that keep your hands on the steering wheel. I'm wiggling the steering wheel, giving it a little bit of input, and then all of a sudden it basically kept going on and said steering assist or pilot assist unavailable, vehicle stopping. It thought like it was going to stop the vehicle. Of course, I overrode that and kept accelerating. But nonetheless, now it says pilot assist or steering assist unavailable until next drive. That leads me to believe that I need to actually stop the car, put it in park, turn it off, turn it back on, and then get it back on the interstate just to have the lane centering steering assist function, because the car didn't detect my hand on the steering wheel despite it being on the steering wheel, me giving it extra input. So I don't know what I'm going to do here, if I'm going to stop and you know, pull over, shut the car off, turn it back on, or just drive without the lane centering. Probably just keep driving, honestly. We have 2.5 hours. Now, some other frustrating items about this vehicle are going to be the steering wheel controls, in the fact that there is no way to change the audio, seek track, or even volume from the steering wheel. Now, there is a volume controller and a play pause controller down here in the center console, but there's no way to change audio track just from like the left side of the steering wheel. You have to use the infotainment buttons, which are located down here, or of course you can pull up the media player and use more of the screen. But the fact that you have to use the touch screen to change audio, that's frustrating. Outside of that, I mean, the experience has been really good. I just tried the massage seat for a full 20-minute session. It worked pretty good. It's just the back portion of the seat once again. You have slightly more selection in terms of features and functionality. So we'll go ahead and show you guys up on the screen. So going into massage, you have 5 different programs, 3 different intensities and 3 different speeds. Then you can go ahead and start it. Again, it's only limited to 20 minutes, which, you know, that's about every vehicle these days for whatever reason. And then the driver seat adjustments are done via the knob on the side of the seat, and basically the button in the middle will cycle through the different adjustments there, highlighting what the knob will do. I don't really love that, but again, you shouldn't be touching that all that often, so at the end of the day, I don't think that's a huge deal. So what's with these manufacturers doing these tinted fixed glass sunroofs with no power shades that aren't tinted enough to block 100% of the, I guess, UV and or heat coming from the sun into the cabin? It's now up to 87 degrees, so we're pretty much pacing 90 degrees for the day. Mostly sunny, a few clouds here and there, but the sun angle is starting to get high enough now that I can actually feel the sun radiating off the top of my head, and it's actually genuinely a little bit warmer to the touch than the rest of the cabin. All right, so now that we find ourselves in a little bit of traffic here just over the border in Indiana, we are just over 1 hour or 73 miles out from the original charge stop destination. And you can see maybe down here that the estimated state of charge on arrival has gone up to 16%. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we are doing either lower speeds or less headwind, or ambient conditions were more favorable going through the suburbs of Chicago and still going in this kind of moderate speed heavy traffic where you're not going at 70, 75, 80 miles an hour consistently, although at times you probably are. But nonetheless, a little bit more efficient going through the suburbs. And this has crept up really 3% state of charge on arrival. It got down to 13%, kind of held there, got up to 14%, held there for a while, and then it went 15, 16 fairly quickly. And we are currently at 43% state of charge on the battery according to the vehicle, with 110 miles of estimated range, which leaves us a buffer of just under 40 miles between the estimated range on the dash and how far we actually have to go. 37.1 kilowatt hours to 100 miles, which I think equates to about 2.4, maybe 2.45 miles per kilowatt hour. So this thing isn't crazy efficient, but it's not so inefficient that it offers poor total range, especially due to the fact that if you've seen my Blazer EV road trip video, that did about 2.4 to 2.5 over the entire 1,000 mile road trip. And there was parts of that trip that were much slower speeds, and that vehicle has a smaller battery with a worse charging curve. So nonetheless, that was a similar efficiency trip, but I'm expecting this trip to be much better just due to the larger battery, which ultimately equals larger total range and should be better charging performance as well. But we have yet to actually test that here, but we will be doing it in just over 1 hour. Once we stop in that town, it's about 186 miles to the hotel, which is well within range of a 80% charge on this vehicle. So that should work out pretty ideal, and I think it's just ultimately the best stop, even if it's not going to be ideal in terms of state of charge on arrival, getting that 10 to 80% test that I'd like to do with this vehicle. But so far, this has been a pretty ideal road trip, I would say, in terms of the driving dynamics of the car, the adaptive air suspension, the sound quality from the Bowers and Wilkins audio is just phenomenal, especially when you're playing the high resolution audio via Tidal on the infotainment system. Downsides are driver assist technology is not the greatest. You have the panoramic fixed glass roof with no shade that is beaming down directly now on the front of my face. And, some of the controls here on the interior are not so great. But outside of that, if you take away the negatives, there's a lot of positive here. I just think they need to keep refining it even further and give us back some physical buttons and controls here on the interior, because that would make the experience just that much better for doing simple tasks like changing tracks on the infotainment system to the next song. It's like, just give us a button or a steering wheel control for that. Okay, so we are about 5 minutes away from our charging stop. Car still says 17% state of charge here. It's saying targeting 15. I would not doubt we get there at 16%. In terms of, I guess, needing to stop on this trip, I'm not gonna lie. Last time I drove up to Detroit, I must have been dehydrated or something, because I went all the way to about an hour outside of the city before I needed to stop and use the bathroom. But now I need to go like right now, right at 1 mile off of the interstate, which really isn't all that bad. You can see there's shopping centers. We got Walmart, Best Buy. I can see a McDonald's sign. This, I believe, is at a Meijer grocery store, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's at the Walmart. 235 miles travel will be about 236 by the time we plug in. 37 kilowatt hours to 100 miles. I'll have to do the conversion on that, but I'm going to say it's right around 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour and 3 hours and 30 minutes of total drive time, which again, I actually do need to stop, use the restroom, and I'll probably grab a bite to eat or a snack. Oh, right next to Tesla superchargers. Well, shoot, I could have just tried the superchargers. I do have the adapter here. I don't like how laggy the cameras are here. And this is where this video and my plans start to go a little bit awry. Now, don't worry, the rest of this video is of high quality, a lot of good information about the Polestar 3, my road trip experience, and additional charging information. However, I wanted to explain how this first charging session went very quickly here, and a little bit more about how the Polestar 3 is limited by certain charging hardware here in the United States. Now, from what I researched online, the Polestar 3 is actually capable of pulling over 500 amps of charging current. However, a lot of our Electrify America and other 350 kilowatt stations here in the United States are limited to 500 amps of output, which means the charger cannot put out the power that the Polestar 3 is requesting. So basically, I plugged in at 16% state of charge. I expected to go above 200 kilowatts of charging speed. However, I only saw about 190 to about 193 kilowatts before it tapered off at roughly 32%. And from that point forward, I think the vehicle and the charger was able to match what each one is requesting and following a normal charging curve of the Polestar 3, or a charging curve of the Polestar 3, because I saw an entirely different charge curve when I did the actual 10 to 80% charge test on a different Electrify America on my road trip. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that 10 to 80% charge test that I will be posting in more detail here on the channel. But nonetheless, I spent 10 to 80% right at 31 minutes on this Electrify America, and about 35 minutes total up to 83%, starting at 16, just because I was figuring out what was going to happen here in the next clip and sorting out some logistical things. Now, one thing that I have found online is that certain Tesla, either version 3 or version 3.5 stations with the new version 4 cabinets, are able to fulfill the Polestar 3's like 600 or 600 plus amp current request at lower states of charge, which means you should see near 250 kilowatts of peak charging speed under the ideal situation on compatible Tesla sites and maybe some other third parties that can do 400 plus kilowatts of charging speed, which we do have, such as Iona and some other sites I believe here in the United States can do 400 plus kilowatts. Which means a higher charge current. But nonetheless, there's not a lot of sites, or not the majority of sites here in the United States, that can fulfill the Polestar 3's request of over 500 amps of charging current. So just keep that in mind. That's why I did not see the peak fastest charging here on the Polestar 3, but this was the 500 amp limitation fastest charge curve, or what I believe to be here in the United States. So you're gonna add 5+ minutes onto that 30-minute time. If you're doing Electrify America 500 amp chargers and similar from other third parties, rather than getting that 10 to 80% in as little as 30 minutes, which unfortunately, just to give you guys a little heads up, I did not experience on this road trip. Good morning, everyone. You joined me on my second day up on the way to Detroit, Michigan, and yesterday was certainly a turn of events. So after the first charging stop, I looked at my email and I realized I made a very dumb mistake. I started driving one day too early to the event for my scheduled time slot. Now, all was not lost, because during the communication between me and the team, I realized, and they realized, that they did not book me a hotel at all for my stay up at this event, and they thought I was a local person, didn't live too far away. Well, I live nearly 7 hours via a gas car away from this location. So in an electric car, it's going to be like a 7.5 hour road trip. So I requested a room, and we got that all sorted out. So all is good. I actually ended up staying in Paw Paw, Michigan, just because it's right off I-94. And I did a little scenic drive up to South Haven, just, to see the scenery, saw the beach, saw Lake Michigan, saw the good stuff, just wanted to basically kill a little bit of time, as well as explore and test out the Polestar 3. So I ended up charging in Paw Paw at the local Ford dealership on a Blink 180 kilowatt charger, and we left the hotel at right around 78% state of charge, which the navigation's saying we're going to arrive at the hotel with 24% state of charge, which I think is right around what my targeted goal was yesterday after the first charging stop. So needless to say, a little bit of a messy situation, but we got it all figured out. It's all sorted now, and I have about an hour and a half to 2 hours to kill before I can check in at the hotel. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a straight wall of water in front of us with these thunderstorms or rain showers around. So we are finally making it into Detroit just before 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we have a 22% state of charge on arrival. Now, just showing you the current trip information and the statistics on the way up for the first half of this trip. We've traveled 443 miles since leaving the house at an average efficiency of 37.2 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, which I believe once again comes in right around 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, since today, it's averaging slightly lower at 36.1 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, so not too different. And ultimately, I think this vehicle is going to settle in somewhere around that 2.5, maybe just a little bit higher per mile per kilowatt hour in terms of efficiency. Now, had everything gone to plan and worked out in terms of schedule, I really only would have needed to stop for about 35 to 40 minutes tops at Electrify America to charge this vehicle up to just over or right at 80% to make it all the way to the hotel with, 10 to 15% state of charge on the battery, which is more than enough. So you joined me a couple days later and we are heading out for Detroit. Now, the good news is the valet parking was able to get the Polestar 3 charged up to 100% state of charge. So we are leaving Detroit with a full battery, which I am absolutely ecstatic about. And this is showing 290 miles on the estimated range counter. And there I have the trip information pulled up. You can see we've driven 455 miles thus far. And 290 miles is quite a distance if we can get some good efficiency numbers. Heck, you can make it pretty much all the way through the Chicago suburbs or right around that area with this amount of range. Now, am I going to push it? I'm not exactly sure yet. I think Michigan City is a safe bet to stop and charge, maybe at around 10-15%, something like that. We're just going to basically get on the road and drive and see how far we can make it. I am so happy to have left with a full charge because it just makes the drive so much easier getting out of town. It's been a great fun time here in Detroit. I cannot say enough good things about the team. The hotel was great. I wish I had a little bit more free time to just explore Detroit, but hey, we'll probably be back here in the future, so no harm, no foul. I have a little bit more information regarding what the Google Maps built-in has decided to do for my route planning on the trip home. It automatically added the Electrify America charging station in Michigan City as my only stop for this trip. And as you can see, it's reading that we will get there at 23% state of charge. Now, that's obviously much higher of a state of charge than I would wish. However, I don't think that's a terrible route plan for the average person because it's roughly halfway. It's a little over halfway in the return direction, just like it was a little over halfway in the going direction that I stopped. But it's saying you only need to stop and charge for 23 minutes, and it's planning a state of arrival at home at 10%, which 10% to me is actually pretty ideal for arriving to a destination, as long as you're confident that there is a charger nearby, a charger in your garage, a charger at your workplace, whatever the case may be. But I think I'm actually going to follow this and not stay quite as long as 23 minutes, assuming we get full peak speeds, because there is an Electrify America in Geneseo, Illinois, where I usually do all of my 10 to 80% charge tests, and I can basically try to arrive at that station right around 10% state of charge, do my 10 to 80% test on my unit number 3 that I, hopefully will get full power the entire time, and see how the Polestar 3 charges in that scenario, if we can meet the 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. I really did want to make it to Joliet, Illinois for the Electrify America, but doing the math and all of the calculations, I would be arriving with like 1% or 0% state of charge. And I'm just not willing to risk it with this vehicle, given I don't know much about it and I don't have much time figuratively behind the wheel in terms of calendar days or road trips or things like that. Efficiency on this leg so far, over 65.8 miles, 36.4 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, which you can see is right at the same as the overall average for this trip, which is hovering around that 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, maybe just a smidge less. All right, looks like in terms of vehicles charging, we have Nero EV, Mach-E, and then a Kia EV6, and then we got Tesla superchargers. Man, I'm half tempted to do a supercharger. This frame rate is terrible for the dang cameras. As you can see, we are basically pacing exactly 36.5 to 37 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So I like in here, after plugging in and charging, it looks like it's saying 75% needed to continue on the trip. Now, obviously, that has the original destination there. I have not changed to the Geneseo Electrify America. So it looks like we have another 3.5 hours, maybe including charge time. Should tell us over here how much we need in terms of to continue on our trip.
This route avoids a crash on I-80 West.
Oh, great.
You're on the fastest route.
There's always
you
a
should
crash
reach your
on
destination
I-80.
by 3:11 p.m.
But I do like this. It basically says end of your current battery range on your actual route. It'd be nice to give you a little bit of a bubble over here. So here's your current location. If it just gave you the geographical map and expanded the range outward instead of giving you this little highlighted bubble over here. But nonetheless, it tells you how far you can go on your current route with your current state of charge. Which you can see, we're just outside Joliet, where there was another Electrify America that would have been preferable to stop at getting through the Chicago suburbs, but obviously we have this accident on here, which real-time Google Maps information is always pretty darn good, and I rely on it quite heavily, but I'm not sure I want to take this detour, but we'll have to see. Hopefully something changes here in the next 20 minutes while I'm charging. Okay, so you joined me here near the end of our nearly 1,000-mile road trip, and we are getting ready to charge here at Geneseo, Illinois, Electrify America, and somehow, some way, everything worked out perfectly in my favor to arrive at a 10% state of charge. So we're going to do the 10 to 80% charge test video here during this session, but it will be separate, probably posted here on the channel, as this is probably already quite a long one, but I will recap all of the charging and everything like that once we arrive back, go over efficiency statistics, my overall thoughts on the road trip and things like that here in just a few seconds. But in terms of efficiency on this stint, so 175 miles since our last charge, 40.1 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, so relatively inefficient. Some of that is to do with the fact that I've not been going quite as slowly as I have. I've been doing about 79 to 80 miles an hour the entire time, minus the fact that we went through a ton of construction and a ton of slowdowns in and around Chicago. I mean, that was easily a 30 to 45 minute delay by all the traffic and car accidents that I had to go through in construction. A little bit less efficient than some of the other ones, but 37.5 is our average for the trip over 856. So this will end up being about a 870 mile or so round trip, road trip, and I still have a little bit of additional driving to do here over the next couple days as I wrap up my week with the Polestar 3. But I gotta admit, very comfortable ride, just with poor driver assist and interior technology. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Sound system's fantastic. It's extremely quiet. It's extremely peppy and quick in acceleration. Efficiency numbers are so-so for a vehicle like this. Not the worst, not the best. I'm sure the slower you drive it, obviously the better efficiency it will get. I don't really have any problems with the seats like I did the XC90. The ride's so much better than the XC90. There is just a lot of small tweaks and differences that make this a much better vehicle all around than the Volvo XC90, which I did this exact same trip on just about a little under 2 months ago. So yeah, it's quite stark differences, and really the money is not all that different, which is the most surprising part. You know, you're talking just a couple $1,000s difference in terms of the MSRPs as equipped between these two vehicles. And yes, I get this vehicle doesn't have a third row or anything, but you know, you might end up cross-shopping these two just because they offer some similarities in terms of design, aesthetic, technology, feel behind the wheel. Performance is great in both, of this one being a little bit more performance oriented. But yeah, hands down, I would take the Polestar 3 over the XC90 any day. And that is where I'm going to pretty much leave this road trip review video here on the 2025 Polestar 3 Performance. Now, if you guys want to see the results of my 10 to 80% charge test, make sure you guys check out that separate dedicated video that I will have coming here on the channel, explaining both of the two different, wildly different charge curves I experienced with the Polestar 3 on this road trip, and you know, basically going over some of the limitations of the Polestar 3 in a little bit more detail. But unfortunately, I did not get to experience the 10 to 80% in as little as 30 minutes because unfortunately, I didn't use the right equipment to fulfill the charging current limitations, or I should say requests, of the Polestar 3, where Electrify America unfortunately is unable to do that here for most, if not all of their sites here in the United States, just because of the hardware that they are using. But overall, easily could have made it from Detroit to here and here to Detroit in one stop in either direction of roughly 30 minutes of time. Now, like I said, I stopped for 35 minutes total on my way up, but that was just because I was figuring out logistically, what I needed to do to make everything work that day. I could have unplugged at 80% or even probably right around 75% state of charge, made it to the hotel without an issue, done the level 2 charging there, and had, easily enough time to fulfill that, get up to 100%, which you guys saw earlier on this video, and then head back, do one stop in Michigan City for roughly 25, 28 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if you really wanted to be comfortable, depending on the charge curve that you witnessed, and then, finish your entire trip back home. And like the Google Maps integrated said, I would have had 10% arriving at home, and that was pretty darn accurate, although I was driving a little bit faster, and I think it got down to like 9 or 8%. If I would have gone past Geneseo and just headed straight home, but still would have made it home without an issue and could have charged here at the house. But the entire road trip was very good in terms of how the vehicle drove. I mean, I've went over this in detail earlier on this video. Ride quality, seat comfort, the audio system, the vehicle looks, the quietness of the interior cabin, everything about this was fantastic, minus the driver assist technology, the interior infotainment technology, specifically when it came to steering wheel controls. The main infotainment screen and some of the other apps that were running on it did not run correctly, and the fixed glass roof without a power sunshade was really annoying on these hot summer days where you felt the sun just beating down inside the cabin. But you fixed those 3 issues or so. There was probably another one here or there that I was lesser of an issue, and the experience was very, very good. Now, like I mentioned at the very end of this video, I would have easily picked the Polestar 3 over the Volvo XC90 to do this exact same road trip on, because I did the exact same road trip essentially in both vehicles, and the XC90 just rode rough. The seats were not as comfortable. The technology might have been marginally better because there's more physical buttons in that vehicle, so that was a plus of the XC90. Performance and all that, really not too dissimilar, but again, I guess one other item to point out is, if you're putting premium fuel in the XC90 and you're public DC fast charging the Polestar 3, both of those options are fairly expensive for the fuel economy that you're getting in the XC90 and the efficiency that you're getting in the Polestar 3. I saw about 37 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, which equates to about 2.65 to 2.67 miles per kilowatt hour of average efficiency over my entire road trip, which, like I mentioned earlier on this video, is marginally or very, very slightly better than that I experienced in the Chevy Blazer EV on that road trip. That was an entirely different type of road trip. I would argue that one was arguably more efficient in terms of the type of driving than this one out on the interstate. But with the larger battery capacity of the Polestar 3, that means, if you're getting roughly 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour at 75 plus miles an hour, you can push 290 to 300 miles of total range if you run it down to 0% and use the entire usable capacity, which, really isn't all that terrible. It's just the charging curve and the charging performance is a limiting factor, especially when you're thinking about a premium electric SUV that, tries to be somewhat cutting edge in some capacity, mainly how it drives and how it looks and, styling, things like that. But outside of that, car did very good. Make sure to check out my dedicated likes and dislikes on the 2025 Polestar 3 in a separate video posted here on the channel if you guys haven't already. And if you guys enjoyed this video and or found something helpful, make sure to hit that like button below, subscribe if you haven't already. Huge thanks to Polestar for letting me drive this vehicle nearly 1,000 miles to and from Detroit. And if you guys have any additional questions about it, feel free to leave those down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer them. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of the road trip, the Polestar 3, or any of the other Polestar products if you're curious about that, and whether or not you might be interested in purchasing one of these vehicles, because it does qualify for the federal EV tax credit through the end of September, because that is the current deadline that is out there. Anyways, let me know all that down in the comment section below, and as always, I hope to see you guys in the next one.